Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally, and you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Finally Clicked, podcast on whatever the heck we want to talk about. I would tell you it's about leadership or business acumen or developing leaders on your team or turning your phone off when you're recording a podcast. I can tell you it's about a lot of things, but the reality is it's kind of up to me and I am Jesse D. Moore. It's also up to Margaret McCauley Smith, who sits across from me. Today, we're going to take a different tone, a different tact. I would say most of the time we're lighthearted and jovial. Dare I say silly, most of the time. And that's entertaining and authentic. I think if we're going to talk into a microphone for an hour, it should be fun. Mm-hmm. And generally it is. But we talk a lot about authenticity. And I think it would be inauthentic to do anything other than what we're going to do next. Last week, we recorded an episode. In per usual fashion, my ex-wife brought this up in a parenting meeting.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about this.
Well, no, not the podcast, but she brought up the fact that I'm a procrastinator. Well, and I said, well, let's be fair, it's not just procrastination. Like, I work well under pressure.
Yes.
And so, because I work well under pressure, sometimes I help myself out by adding a little extra pressure by putting things off. And we were talking about our daughter, who has a tendency to procrastinate. Sorry, a yawn attacked me out of nowhere. So my daughter has a tendency to procrastinate, but she does not.
I guess I didn't realize
She
that.
doesn't thrive under pressure. She doesn't do well under pressure. She's not doing better work because
So the anxiety doesn't help.
things off.
Yeah.
And so we often record on Fridays because throughout the week, the rest of the week, we're busy doing other things, and in our minds, we have a commitment to put something out once a week. And so Friday's kind of the last bastion of hope for us to record something.
Good word.
So we recorded a pretty silly podcast, and as I left here, I received notification that a friend of ours had passed away. Someone who used to worked for us for not quite a year, close to a year, who was a delight to our many members of our team, and for other reasons, it just didn't work out for him to work with us at the time. But he died, way before his time. He died young, leaving behind 2 kids and a family that loves him and adoring friends. And I notified Margaret right away. I notified you. You're the first person I told. And then we started telling people we knew we would care next. And I went into the weekend. Jill worked all weekend. I had the kids. And I think that forced me. Did she work? I'm trying to think. I think she worked all weekend. It's all a blur, honestly. I had the kids. It was a normal weekend for the most part, other than I was consumed by my thoughts of our friend that had passed away. And I was getting a lot of text messages from people asking about him and confirming if it was true. I know you were holed up crying most of the weekend. Mm-hmm. And then Sunday comes along, And Kobe Bryant is involved in a helicopter crash with his 13-year-old daughter. This is a fun episode. And just I don't know Kobe Bryant, but it made everything real. Just heightened everything for me, and just knowing what kind of person Kobe had become, and what kind of father and husband he had become, and so we're faced with our own mortality staring us in the face this week, and came to work on Monday. Monday was a pretty brutal day for me. I think people that you're more empathic than I am, perhaps, and everyone grieves in their own way, in their own time. And for me, when I found out on Friday that this team member had passed away, it shocked me, and I was confused and hurt by it. But it didn't really hit me until Monday. Mm-hmm. And we came to work on Monday, and I was having a hard time dealing with it, talking about it with people on the team. I texted Jill right away, said this day's not going well. I'm not doing well, and I'm just giving you a heads up. And it was a difficult day. So we want to be authentic to our current reality, which is it's been a hard week. And somehow we're going to figure out what to say to all of you people listening. This is where my co-host takes over.
Well, I think that was a lovely, wonderful start of what this episode's going to be about. So, and I think we can say his name, Armin Saee. So you texted me about 2:30 sometime in the afternoon on Friday, and I mentioned that because we were actually in the middle of vision boarding with the team. So it was me, myself, and I. Can't help but throw in a Moism there. It was myself, Jaggles, Jessica, Amanda, and our friend Melissa. And that was really pointed for me because as I sat there looking at my old vision board, which I was about to take apart, I realized that the last time I put that together was when Armin was there. And so I didn't cry right away because I think I experienced shock. And then I started talking out loud to him. And I was like, what the fuck? How can you be gone? I don't understand this. And so, just went along through my afternoon, but I couldn't work. It was really clear that my body was like, I'm not functioning. So I couldn't publish the podcast as much as I stared at it at my desk for an hour. And then I had to go to my brother's house for dinner because one of my brothers was in town, Ben. And I cried there for the first time because my mom was like, can I ask you about Armin? And so I just cried. And then I spent all of Saturday crying, pretty much. Yeah. I think, I'm an empath. And also, though, I think what I've taught myself is I have to feel the pain. I have to feel the emotion in order to move through it. And so I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't feel comfortable totally doing it, I guess, on Friday at work. I didn't feel like able to do it. So on Saturday, I spent a lot of time just thinking about him, and I journaled a little bit about him. And anytime a song came on that reminded me of him or I thought of him, I would just start to cry. So I went for a long walk, just did whatever I could. And then I had to go to another family party that night for my brother. And I got to talk to a couple people there about him. But I think what really stood out to me was that, like you said, it kind of just, again, every time it brings you perspective and you think about your own mortality. And so all of a sudden, all the little things that you get so obsessed with just don't matter anymore. And on Monday, I had been going back and forth on whether or not to put anything on social media because I have such a presence on there, and I didn't want to disrespect the family. And at the same time, I want to be true and authentic to myself, like we're doing with this podcast. And the true and authentic Margaret, when thinking about Armin, if Armin were here in the office today, I would give this to him in person. And so when I thought about it like that, I said, well, here we go. I'm doing it. Felt right. He meant a lot to all of us, and I wanted a tribute to him. And so he loved talking to me about relationships. He loved talking to me about what kind of man he thought I should be with. And so when I posted that, I just hoped that it would give some solace to some of his family members to know how many people loved him. And that was something actually that Jaggles commented on the next day. She was like, I wonder if he knew how many people really adored him. And so it's really made me think about, in relation to this particular passing, how many people I don't reach out to regularly enough to tell them I care about them. Because I think we just get so caught up in the daily stuff and the people that are right around us that it's hard to make that extra effort. And so this has been a really difficult. And with the helicopter crash on Sunday too, I don't have a particular connection with anybody in the basketball world. I know my brothers did, and a lot of them were talking about it after that. For me, it was kind of difficult to have all of these people talking about Kobe when someone I felt like that was in our world that was close to us and wasn't, famous in any way, shape, or form like that I just couldn't compare the two. And so it kind of made me, I guess, even more sad in a way. It's part of the process, I guess, for me of just processing grief.
Well, everybody, yeah. Everyone is affected differently. Kobe, for me, it just, it was less about him being a great basketball player and more about him having 4 young daughters.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I guess as a business owner, like thinking so much of what we work for is for the future, right?
Mm-hmm. You're not guaranteed anything.
And this is I have this conversation a lot with people. The way I was raised, that's a book. That's the title of my book.
There you go.
The way I was raised, our treasure is in heaven. That's the kind of the motto. And you were meant to live a self-sacrificial life. And then as I became a business owner and successful in business, everyone has a dogma around money and finances and how you're supposed to operate. I know, for instance, and it's funny, I just went on vacation. Right before I went on vacation, you and I had an interaction with somebody who was checking out our office and who knew us from afar and had an opinion.
Well, apparently didn't know me. And that's okay.
He didn't know you. And he was speaking about Pickett Street and about myself and about the frequency that I travel. Mm-hmm. And with obvious disdain. And what I want that person, I don't care what he thinks. What I'd like him to know is that I've learned through lessons like these that life is short. And I don't work hard. I don't work hard to play hard when I'm 60. Like, I don't know when I'm going to have a chance to go to Prague or to Bali or to see these places. And anyway, I think I've talked before too about Jill's mother was diagnosed with cancer, and she battled it and won. But one of the side effects of the treatment was neuropathy in her feet. And so essentially the nerve endings in her feet were hypercharged, and she gets shooting pains and sharp pains, and walking became very difficult. Walking any sort of distance was near impossible. And the one thing that she stated to Jill after dealing with the neuropathy for quite some time was that you kids are doing it right by traveling now. Because she goes, she put all the money aside and all this time aside to travel when she was retired, and now she can't walk long distances. She can't really imagine traveling at all now. And so she put all these things aside to do it later in life, and she can't do that. And I've learned from lessons like that, and I know life is short, and I'm gonna jam pack it as full as possible. And it may not always make sense financially or emotionally or schedule wise, but we do it, and I'm committed to it. And I do see that reflected in Kobe's life, how he played basketball and how he lived his life. He left everything on the court, and he did the best he could. There's just something romantic. We romanticize retiring, being rich, and being able to do whatever you want. And that's kind of what he had accomplished in life. And then literally 2-3 years after his retirement, he's gone. And it's funny when a celebrity passes, you see those things and you think about those things in a way that was different from how I saw Armin, which was he's just way too soon. Way too soon. He was an amazing dad, so I think about his kids and the impact on those kids over the rest of their lives. I don't know. As a dad, those two stories are connected for me. It's not just, I think that parallel married the two things together for me. And as life is, it's funny. People were sending in, friends of mine were sending like their last communication with Armin. A text message or a Facebook message or Instagram message. And I looked at my own messages from him. And I wish I would have spent more time with him, especially after he left the team. And life doesn't always allow that to happen. And so we just have to monopolize the time that we have with the people that we love and cherish. And Monday you wrote, I went home early-ish. I had to get the kids or something. I was sitting in the house darkly by myself, and I was just looking through social media. I was looking at all the posts involving Armin. And then I read your post that you wrote for Armin, and I cried like a baby. And then I kept leaking for the next couple hours. And I wrote you a text, and I shared your post, just thanking you for saying what I couldn't. And as soon as I had heard about him passing, I knew I didn't want to go to a memorial service. I don't know why I had that instant thought and response and reaction. Other than I feel like I memorialize people in my own way. And my relationship with them is private for me. And it turns out that Armin's not having a public service per se, which is a relief to me in the sense that I really just want to honor him in my own way. But you did a great job, and I just want to thank you for writing that down, honoring whatever sentiment you had and writing those thoughts down. And then obviously it had an impact on the family because they saw it and asked if they could use it. And invited a few of us to attend this service if we would like. But Armin was Persian. They have a very close-knit, tight-knit family group. And I want to let them honor Armin in their own way. But I'm just very thankful for what you wrote, and I miss him.
Yeah, I mean, he forever will be to me our team has changed so much over the years, in the last 4 years especially. That group that was there with him at that time, I call them, I don't know if I actually have an official name. They change every time I think of them. They kind of like our in-betweeners, meaning they're the people that got us from there to here. Yeah. And the people we have now, feels very solid, very set. But I'm so grateful and thankful for those people that were there to help us with the leads and the business that we had that we couldn't have done with just you, me, and Sarah. And Armin was one of those who had such epic potential, so charming, so loving, so bright, such a great, I mean, he showed homes most of the time. So sat inspections, showed homes. And just in general, like whenever people met him, he would immediately do whatever he could to make you comfortable. And so he just cracked me up on the daily. And so when I sat there thinking about him on Saturday, I was like, he would just come into the office just to be able to tell me some stupid joke and laugh because he liked to hear me laugh. And then that would make him laugh. And then we had this thing where he'd be like, he showed me how to do a real serious handshake. And so he'd test out my handshake every day. Just silly stuff like that. But it was in that he totally was an additional brother in my life. And so just a real human being. But yeah, he was one of those people who helped get us to the next level. And people who come and go, I've gotten much better at handling emotionally because it's typically really hard for me to let go of people. But I understand now that they each play a part. We all played a part in each other's lives. And his part was I don't think it just had to do with the team. I think there was a couple other reasons he came into our life. So yeah, he will not be forgotten. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I think we come into the week a little somber.
This is a hard week.
A little more grounded.
I looked like crap all week. I mean, let's be honest. It's a blessing.
Here to evaluate
I got makeup
appearance.
on and clothes. I'm not wearing my earrings. There were 3 out of the 5 days this week where I had to drag my butt out. I don't feel like myself. I feel depleted, emotionally drained. So yeah, I need to sleep this weekend and that's okay. I have to live in it and I can't avoid it. So it's been a weird week though. I agree.
Well, it certainly reframes priorities and I always hope that that's not just a pat saying, that people don't just say it and then forget it and move on.
I hope not.
And I feel like I've learned lessons from experiences like this, and that's why I live my life the way that I do. And it's unapologetic. It came up in my discussion with my ex-wife today. We're talking about co-parenting and our kids and what was working and what's not working, and we're very different people, and she doesn't have the framework over the last 5-6 years to know what I've learned or how I've changed or what's different, or even on a week-to-week basis. I mean, she should have known that she would have seen social media, would know that someone I knew passed away, but didn't come up. And my point is just that this affects me and it will change me. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that as a platitude. I mean that when things like this happen, it changes me at a core level, and I remember it and I move forward. I adapt and move forward, and I'm sure I will get stressed out about things that don't matter in the future. Mm-hmm. I'm not, that obviously will come back, but I just want to, I guess I'm trying to honor Armin and his family by saying that he made an impact, and even in his passing, he will have made a difference to someone like me. So today's gonna be a short episode. We gave ourselves permission to do a short episode because we're not interested in making jokes or crunching on ice or anything else. We just wanted to reach out to our Finally Clicked family and let them know that we're grieving right now, and
it's okay to grieve people that you've worked with. It's like family. And I think we've talked about enough on the podcast for people to know that that's how we operate. and it's not a bad thing. I mean, we just talked about that again this morning. It's you have to find the people that you want to spend that much time with, and they're also the people that can turn it on and be involved in the business and turn on the business, and also like have the culture and the ability to understand that we care about each other. So I think this is part of life. And for people that don't operate that way, I could never work in an environment like that where we didn't acknowledge someone who had passed that we had spent that much time with.
I've always thought we should do memorials while people are living.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've thought about this even as a business idea, that we like throw living memorials for people. And
That's
then
a
people,
great idea.
Yeah, that way you get to celebrate somebody while they're still alive.
Yeah. That's a fantastic
and then
idea.
that way you get to know your impact on people and everything.
Yes.
Because, oh man, this is tough for me to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I think about Armin in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
It'd been hilarious.
Oh my gosh, he would have had a blast. First of all, there would be lots of food because all the guy did was eat. Besides that, he was dancing
nonstop,
and he would have the best time. Yeah, he loved a party and he loved people. That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, I almost want. Yeah, I've thought about it a lot in that sense, and it's probably narcissistic and grandiose in some ways, but from where it's intended, I think it'd be. I think about Kobe or even his daughter. You know, like. Yeah.
Well, I think it's what I love. One of the reasons I love Gary Vaynerchuk is because he will use this and something like this that happens in his life to bring himself perspective on the daily. And so he talks about it often how, like, if you think something about someone, tell them. And so it always prompts me and reminds me to reach out to someone and say, like, this is what I think of you. I just want you to know I think you're super creative, or whatever the compliment might be. That kind of affirmation that people may not get that often needs to happen more often. Like, which is why I love that we do the gratitude every week for a team member at our meetings. I think calling out what you see in other people and speaking into them like that is super powerful. And so I agree with you. I think it needs to happen right now in real life.
So maybe just let someone know who is important to you. Maybe just today. Maybe let them know. Mm-hmm. Don't explain it. Just tell them. Yeah. You're important to me, Margaret.
Well, same for you. And I can't wait to read your book.
I wasn't right. What was it? What did I say?
Oh, yeah.
You see, you gotta write this down and I'll forget it.
This is my story.
No, I wasn't raised that way.
I wasn't raised that way. Yeah. This is the way I was raised.
I was raised. How?
I was raised this way.
It's funny.
Something like that.
We'll break it down.
Yeah.
It'll change. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
You're up.